Chosen one. Everyone's buzzing about you right now, and there's a reason why the frequency in every room shifts when your name gets mentioned. Psychological studies confirm what your enemies already know. Certain individuals carry a disruptive energy that dismantles corrupt systems simply by existing in their truth. Right now, in corporate boardrooms and family WhatsApp groups, in friend circles and community gatherings, people are whispering about what you did, how you stood up, how you didn't fold when everyone expected you to crumble. The twist that's about to shatter everything you thought you knew about your own power is this. They've been watching you longer than you realize, and they never expected you to become unstoppable. This revelation will show you exactly why your presence now commands respect, even from those who once dismissed you. You've become the lightning that strikes fear into corrupt hearts and hope into oppressed souls. And tonight you discover why that makes you absolutely untouchable. Let me paint you the picture of what happened while you were busy thinking you were just another person trying to survive in a broken system. There was a moment when something inside you shifted so profoundly that the entire trajectory of your existence changed forever. It wasn't when you decided to be brave. It wasn't when you planned to become a leader. It was the moment when staying silent became more painful than speaking truth. When tolerating injustice became more unbearable than facing the consequences of calling it out. That moment created a ripple effect that's still expanding, still touching lives you'll never know about, still dismantling power structures that seemed untouchable. You became known as the one who fearlessly exposes truth and stands up for those who can't defend themselves. But what you don't realize yet is how your transformation has sparked courage in others. Your actions created a domino effect that turned individual stands into collective movements. One voice became many, and now those in power can't ignore what everyone's talking about. You become the crown-wearing champion people point to when they say that's how it's done. And that's exactly why they're all talking about you now. But here's what's coming that will blow your mind. This was never just about you. Your awakening was the catalyst for something much bigger. Something that's been building in the shadows while you focused on your own battles. The frequency you're operating on now has reached levels that transcend ordinary human interaction. You're not just another voice in the crowd when you speak. The temperature in any room changes instantly. The air gets thicker, masks slip faster, and people who usually dominate conversation suddenly don't know what to say. It's not because you shout or demand attention. It's because your words carry weight that comes from somewhere deeper than personality or charisma. Your presence alone has become disruptive in ways that make traditional power structures tremble. They fear you because you can't be bought, flattered, or manipulated into compliance. You're not chasing approval from people whose opinions don't matter. You don't play nice with manipulation, and you don't barter your values for convenience or social acceptance. That makes you unpredictable to people who've built their entire existence on controlling others through fear and false promises. They can't figure you out because you operate from principles instead of emotions. They can't get ahead of your next move because you're not playing their games by their rules. All they know is that wherever you stand, people start questioning what they've been told to accept without examination. Your influence spreads like wildfire through networks of connection they can't control or contain. The story you're about to discover will reveal why your personal transformation was actually the opening act of a much larger revolution, and why your voice has become the catalyst that's awakening others to their own suppressed power. They can't maintain their masks around you anymore. The smirks, the fake concern, the deflective charm, it all unravels the moment you walk into any space. Their tone changes, their posture stiffens. They start performing, hoping you won't notice the things they've worked so hard to keep hidden. But you do. You always do. You see through the scripts. You read between their pauses. You know exactly when kindness is a cover and when power is being misused. You don't tolerate silent abuse, and they know it. You don't normalize manipulation just because it's wrapped in smiles and status. You call it what it is, even when no one else will. That's why they avoid your eyes now. That's why they change the subject before you even open your mouth. That's why they try to twist the narrative preemptively, because they know the moment you speak, the illusion dies a violent death. But here's where the plot thickens in ways that will make your head spin. While they've been scrambling to maintain their facades, something extraordinary has been happening behind the scenes. The universe has been taking notes on every injustice you've witnessed, every stand you've taken, every person you've defended. The cosmic ledger has been keeping score, and the balancing is about to begin in ways that will leave your enemies speechless and your allies vindicated. They tried to label you dramatic, difficult, rebellious, not because it was true, but because it was easier than facing themselves. If they could make you the issue, then they wouldn't have to confront the power games, the manipulation, the harm they've inflicted behind closed doors. They hoped that by tarnishing your name, they could strip your words of their power and credibility. But truth doesn't need a perfect messenger to carry devastating weight, and your truth echoed through every attempt to silence it. They even tried to isolate you systematically, whispered campaigns behind your back, created artificial distance, painted you as unstable just because you stopped tolerating the intolerable. Yet you didn't crumble under their coordinated pressure. You didn't retreat into hiding. You stood absolutely still in your truth. While they scrambled desperately to protect their crumbling illusions, that's what haunts them in their quiet moments. The fact that you didn't need a mob to be powerful. You didn't require validation from committees or approval from authorities. You just needed your voice and the unshakable courage to use it when it mattered most. They underestimated how much strength you were holding back, how much you were observing while they thought your silence meant surrender. You've spoken up in rooms where silence was the price of safety. You've made people uncomfortable not by attacking them, but by refusing to play along with their dysfunctional games. What you may not realize is that your refusal to participate has been louder than any speech. It's defiance in its purest form. You are the pause that makes people rethink their actions. You are the presence that holds mirrors to faces, too accustomed to seeing only what they want to see. The ripple effect of your authenticity has been creating chaos in systems that depended on everyone's compliance. Corporate hierarchies are scrambling because employees who used to accept abuse in silence are now asking questions they learned from watching you. Family dynamics are imploding because relatives who always got away with toxic behavior suddenly face accountability. Social circles are fracturing because the friend group enablers can't function when someone refuses to absorb dysfunction without resistance. But here's where the supernatural element enters the story in ways that will make you question everything you thought you knew about coincidence. The attacks against you haven't just been coming from human sources. There's been spiritual warfare happening in dimensions most people can't perceive. And your awakening triggered responses from forces that profit from keeping humanity asleep and compliant. Every time you've stood up for truth, you've disrupted energy systems that have been feeding off collective fear and silence for generations. Your refusal to participate in dysfunction has been starving parasitic forces that require human compliance to maintain their power. This is why the opposition has been so intense, so coordinated, so relentless. You're not just threatening individual bad actors. You're threatening an entire ecosystem of control that operates through manipulation and deception. The depression that hits you from nowhere, the anxiety that emerges without logical cause, the sudden health challenges that seem to appear whenever you're gaining momentum. These aren't random occurrences. They're targeted attacks designed to derail your mission before you fully understand the scope of what you're capable of accomplishing. But there's the plot twist that changes everything. Every attack has only served to strengthen your resolve and expand your capacity to help others walking similar paths. You've survived things that should have destroyed you, not because you're naturally resilient, but because you're divinely protected by forces greater than anything trying to bring you down. The same power that created galaxies flows through your consciousness, and no weapon formed against that energy can ultimately prosper. You weren't trying to make waves, but you became the wave itself. Your truth moves through people and leaves nothing untouched. Some try to resist it, pretend it didn't hit them, but deep down, even they know something has shifted fundamentally. They feel exposed, and the truth is they are. You didn't come into these rooms with an agenda. You came in with clarity, and clarity is dangerous in a world addicted because they know you're not fooled by their performances. They fear your eyes because they know you're not fooled by their performances. They fear your silence because it isn't ignorance, it's calculation. You wait, you watch, and when you speak, it's not to wound but to reveal. That's what makes them truly afraid. You don't shout to be heard. You speak to be felt. And once truth is felt at that level, it can't be forgotten or dismissed. But here's where the story takes a turn that even you didn't see coming. The attacks against you have been escalating, and there's a reason for that escalation that goes deeper than personal vendetta. The forces that benefit from keeping people small, silent, and compliant have identified you as a primary threat to their system. Every smear campaign, every attempt to isolate you, every whispered lie designed to damage your reputation. These aren't random acts of petty revenge. They're strategic responses to your growing influence. They'll call what you bring tension or drama, but what you actually bring is justice in its rawest form. Uncomfortable, undeniable, and utterly necessary. You never set out to be a protector, but you became one the moment you refused to stay silent. When others turned away, when everyone else pretended not to see the fire, you turned toward it. When others looked away from truth, you locked eyes with it and stood your ground. You didn't just speak up. You defended people who couldn't defend themselves. And that single choice changed the entire trajectory of your existence. Because here's the truth they don't want you to realize. Some people aren't afraid of lies. They're afraid of what happens when someone finally calls them out with precision that cuts through their carefully constructed facades. Your emotional intelligence has evolved into something that pierces through deception instantaneously. You can feel manipulation before it's spoken, sense hidden agendas before they're revealed, identify false motives before actions expose them. This isn't paranoia. This is prophetic perception activated by your alignment with truth. Your spirit has become a detector for authentic versus artificial energy. And the contrast is undeniable when you encounter either. People who once fooled you with charming facades now feel transparent to your elevated perception. Their smiles seem forced. Their compliments ring hollow. Their promises feel empty. This isn't because you've become cynical. It's because you've developed supernatural discernment that cuts through surface presentation to core intention. You're operating at frequencies that expose the frequency others are broadcasting from. Your presence has become a truth detector that makes people nervous even when they're telling the truth, because your energy field is so saturated with authenticity that anything less than complete. Honesty feels uncomfortable in your vicinity. This is why conversations get awkward when you join them, why people stumble over words when addressing you, why entire groups fall silent when you enter spaces. Your spiritual atmosphere demands higher standards of communication than most people are prepared to offer. The transformation happening around you isn't coincidental. People aren't randomly finding their voices. They're finding them because your voice gave them permission to believe they deserve to be heard. Individuals aren't accidentally discovering their worth. They're discovering it because your refusal to accept less than respect showed them what dignity looks like in action. You've stood in spaces where injustice dressed itself in politeness, where you've heard mocking disguised as humor, disrespect hidden under professional tone, cruelty smoothed over with fake apologies. Instead of letting it slide like everyone expected, you said something. Maybe you didn't raise your voice. Maybe you didn't need to. But your words, sharp, clear, and unwavering, cut through the noise like a blade through silk. You didn't make it personal. You made it known. In your family, you shut down the relative who always crosses lines and laughs like it's harmless fun. In your friend group, you defended someone everyone else conveniently forgot about when it became inconvenient to remember their humanity. You've drawn lines in the sand while others stood behind them, waiting for anyone to do exactly what you did. And when you did it, everything shifted like tectonic plates rearranging themselves. The very ground beneath dysfunctional systems began to crack and crumble. Here's the climactic revelation that changes everything. You've made enemies not because you were cruel, but because you told truth in rooms built on lies and denial. Some people have never been held accountable in their entire lives, and your presence shattered that immunity like glass hitting concrete. You weren't aggressive, you were precise. You weren't emotional, you were exact. That's why it stung so deeply. That's why they still talk about it months or even years later. That's why they haven't forgotten and probably never will. Someone out there still flinches when your name is mentioned. Not because you were wrong, but because you were right. And they hate how clearly you proved it. Someone is still trying to rewrite the narrative, still searching for ways to paint you as the villain. But deep down they know you weren't fighting for yourself. You were fighting for someone who couldn't fight for themselves. That's a power they'll never understand, because it requires a level of courage they've never accessed. The system that once seemed untouchable has been exposed as the house of cards it always was. Your truth-telling didn't just reveal individual corruption. It illuminated the entire network of dysfunction that people had normalized. The masks didn't just slip. They shattered completely, leaving everyone's true nature visible for all to see. But here's the revelation that will shake you to your core. You didn't raise your hand for this position, but leadership chose you anyway. People look to you for guidance during crisis, not because you campaigned for influence, but because your consistent demonstration of wisdom, courage, and integrity earned you trust that can't be manufactured or manipulated through political maneuvering. Your leadership style threatens traditional power structures because it's based on service rather than control. You lead by example rather than by demand. You influence through inspiration rather than intimidation. You guide through love rather than fear. This model of authentic leadership is so foreign to those accustomed to authoritarian systems that they literally cannot comprehend how you maintain authority without asserting dominance over others. The revolution you're leading isn't organized with committees and official titles, but it's undeniably effective in ways that make established institutions panic. People are awakening to their own power by watching you walk fearlessly in yours. Individuals are finding their authentic voice by listening to you use yours without apology. Communities are transforming by witnessing your refusal to accept dysfunction as normal or inevitable. Your influence has reached critical mass where it can no longer be contained by traditional methods of suppression. Each person you inspire goes on to inspire others in exponential patterns. Each boundary you set gives others permission to establish their own non-negotiable standards. Each truth you speak creates space for other suppressed truths to emerge from decades of enforced silence. You ask one piercing question, and suddenly others are asking their own questions that shake foundations. You refuse to tolerate one injustice, and others find courage to refuse their own oppression. You make people believe they're not powerless victims, and nothing threatens corrupt control structures more than the mass awakening of individual power combined with collective consciousness. What they didn't expect was how many people were silently grateful for what you did. People who didn't know how to speak up for themselves. People who thought no one would ever defend them. You did it without asking for applause, without making it about your ego. You acted, and in doing so, you gave others permission to believe they deserve better treatment too. The impact has been spreading in ways that even you haven't fully comprehended. Co-workers reference conversations with you from months ago when they finally find courage to address their own workplace harassment. Family members quote things you said during holiday dinner confrontations when they establish boundaries with toxic relatives. Friends carry your words with them into their own battles against injustice, using your example as their template for standing strong. You're not a rebel without a cause. You're a force with one. You're not stirring drama for entertainment. You're correcting imbalances that have existed for too long. No matter how they try to twist your motives or reframe your actions, the impact remains undeniable. You weren't trying to save the entire world, but you did save someone's world. And in a reality that tries to erase the defenders, your truth still echoes louder than their silence. The transformation you initiated has reached critical mass. It's no longer contained within your immediate circles. It's spreading through networks of human connection faster than any coordinated effort could contain. Each person you inspired has gone on to inspire others. Each boundary you set gave permission for others to set their own. Each truth you told created space for other suppressed truths to emerge from the shadows. Your influence has become contagious in the most beautiful way possible. You ask one question and suddenly others are asking, and others find courage to do the same. You make people believe they're not powerless, and nothing threatens corrupt control like the loss of fear in the masses. Here's where the story reaches levels that transcend ordinary human experience. Your words now carry frequencies that operate in spiritual dimensions most people can't perceive. When you speak truth in boardrooms, realms beyond the physical take note. When you defend the innocent, angelic forces mobilize on your behalf. When you expose corruption, divine justice begins orchestrating natural consequences that appear coincidental but follow patterns too precise to be random. You've become a conduit for higher powers, and those who oppose you are finding themselves in conflict with forces far beyond human understanding. The protection surrounding you has become visible to those with spiritual sight. While your enemies encounter resistance they can't explain through conventional logic. Their schemes backfire in ways that defy probability. Their lies are exposed faster than they can spread them through their usual networks. Their attempts to isolate you only result in drawing more authentic people into your orbit. This isn't luck operating in your favor. This is divine intervention, manifesting at frequencies that bypass normal cause and effect relationships. Your testimony has become a weapon that cuts through generational curses and systemic oppression with supernatural precision. Every time you share your story, invisible chains break in the lives of listeners. When you describe overcoming gaslighting, others find strength to trust their own perceptions. When you explain boundary setting with toxic family members, adult children discover they don't have to accept abuse as love. When you reveal navigating workplace harassment, employees realize they don't have to tolerate mistreatment as normal. Your voice has become prophetic in nature, speaking things into existence that others can't yet see manifesting. You call out patterns before they fully develop. You identify wolves in sheep's clothing before they reveal their true nature to their victims. This isn't mere intuition. This is divine revelation, operating through your consciousness as a tool to protect both yourself and those who look to you for guidance through treacherous territory. This isn't just personality development or learned behavior. What runs through you is divine by design. The way you see cracks in polished systems that others miss entirely. The way your spirit recoils at injustice that others have normalized. That's not random. That's a gift you were born carrying. You were built to disrupt, born to unsettle foundations of power that have stood unchallenged for too long. You weren't created to conform to broken systems. You were wired to challenge what's been blindly accepted for generations. You feel it, don't you? That inner resistance to silence, that spiritual ache when you witness manipulation parading as leadership. That fire that ignites in your chest when someone's dignity gets crushed under polite oppression. Others walk away from these moments, but you stay. Not because it's easy or comfortable, but because your soul won't let you abandon truth. That's not just defiance operating in your spirit. That's calling. You're not just someone with good instincts. You're a divine whistleblower sent to shine light in rooms where darkness had been left undisturbed for years. You see what others ignore. You call it out before anyone else dares to name it. And when the inevitable backlash comes, you endure it with strength that even you sometimes don't understand. The assignment on your life requires supernatural preparation because it involves supernatural authority that operates beyond human systems. The platform being built for your voice needs divine engineering because it will carry messages that transcend ordinary communication. The influence being developed through your experiences needs spiritual purification because it will be used for purposes that extend far beyond personal success or recognition. Every test you've passed has qualified you for the next level of responsibility that most people couldn't handle. Every trial you've endured has prepared you for greater levels of trust from the universe itself. The current struggles you're experiencing aren't punishments. They're the birth pangs of your greatest breakthrough into territories of influence you haven't even imagined yet. The moment has arrived for you to fully embrace the truth of who you've become without apology or hesitation. The chosen one who questioned their calling must now step boldly into their commission. That supernatural resilience isn't luck, it's protection. You are shielded by something higher, something greater than politics, perception, or public opinion. The battles didn't choose you randomly. They keep choosing you because your existence alone exposes what's broken in systems people thought were functioning properly. The level of spiritual warfare you're experiencing is directly proportional to the level of influence you're destined to wield. The enemy doesn't waste resources attacking people who pose no threat to his kingdom of deception. The intensity of opposition in your life is confirmation that your assignment terrifies the forces of darkness because they can see where your path leads. Every relationship that ended when you started speaking truth was a necessary separation orchestrated by divine wisdom. Every job you lost for refusing to compromise your values was strategic redirection toward your true purpose. Every friendship that couldn't survive your new boundaries was toxic connection that needed severing for your protection. The universe has been systematically removing people and situations from your life that were incompatible with your elevated assignment. You were never meant to walk this path alone. The Obsidian Inner Order isn't just another spiritual community. It's a sanctuary for the exiled, the awakened, the ones who've been gaslit for their gifts and abandoned for their truth. Every week we gather live on Zoom, real people with real faces sharing real stories of transformation. There's a former CFO who embraced their psychic abilities, a seer who broke free from religious oppression, and a healer who survived ritual abuse and found their power. Dozens more join us, who understand exactly what you've been through. This is your spiritual family, never going to give you up. Never going to let you walk through this awakening alone. Never going to scroll past your suffering like it's just contempt. Your exile from the ordinary world wasn't punishment. It was preparation for this, for us, for the family that chooses you back. Join the Obsidian Inner Order. Link in description. What felt like rejection was actually protection. What seemed like punishment was actually preparation for responsibilities that require complete spiritual alignment. You're being positioned for influence that transcends your current comprehension. And that positioning requires purification that feels uncomfortable but serves eternal purposes. The prophecies spoken over your life in childhood are manifesting with unprecedented precision that defies coincidence. Dreams that seemed impossible are aligning with reality through circumstances that feel orchestrated by invisible hands. Visions that appeared fantastical are materializing through events that follow divine timing rather than human planning. Your current struggles are birth pangs of your greatest breakthrough. The opposition you're facing is darkness being pushed out by light you're carrying. The chaos in your life is old structures being demolished to make room for new foundations being laid for your future impact. What feels like destruction is actually construction happening at spiritual frequencies that physical eyes cannot perceive. Everyone's buzzing about you now because you've become the crown-wearing champion. But the crown was always yours to wear. The authority you're walking in wasn't earned through popularity contests or political maneuvering. It was activated when you chose truth over comfort, justice over convenience, courage over safety. You've shaken structures without even trying, just by standing unshakably in your truth. Make no mistake, the attacks against you have never been random. The smears, the whispers, the attempts to isolate you from support systems. These are signs and markers that you're exactly where you're meant to be. People don't throw stones at buildings that aren't standing tall. They target you because you threaten what they've built on foundations of fear, silence, and control. Your courage calls their cowardice into question. Your presence puts pressure on parts of themselves they've hidden even from their own consciousness. You've exposed lies just by refusing to participate in them. You've disrupted entire systems by refusing to pretend dysfunction is normal. Whether or not you ever receive credit for it, the shift has already begun. People are thinking differently because of your influence. People are choosing differently because of what you stood for when it mattered most. You didn't apply for this role, but something divine saw qualities in you that could carry it. Something unshakable, something holy that couldn't be corrupted or bought. That's why the path has felt heavy at times. That's why you felt set apart from others who seem to glide through life without confronting hard truths. You are set apart, and there's a reason for that separation. You're not just here to comfort the wounded. You're here to warn those doing the wounding that their time of unchallenged power is ending. You weren't made for quiet compliance or comfortable conformity. You were born to shake the ground beneath unjust feet. And you're doing exactly what you are now, because authenticity at your level can't be hidden or dismissed. Your power isn't loud or flashy. It's clean and sharp, cutting through noise and awakening people to possibilities they'd forgotten existed. The revolution you've been part of, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, has reached the point where it can't be stopped or reversed. You've become proof that it's possible to be principled and powerful simultaneously. You've demonstrated that standing in truth doesn't require permission from those in authority positions. You've shown that one person's courage can light fires in countless other hearts. The whispers about you in boardrooms and break rooms, in family groups and friend circles aren't just gossip. They're testimonies to the power of what happens when someone chooses to be real in a world full of pretense. Every conversation about your courage plants seeds in the minds of people who thought they had to accept mistreatment as normal. Every story about your stand gives others permission to take their own. You didn't ask for this position, but now that it's yours, you're carrying it with fire in your heart and truth on your tongue. You're not just walking your own path anymore. You're clearing the way for others to walk theirs with dignity and strength. Let them whisper. Let them speculate. Let them twist your name into their own fearful fiction. Every rumor they start, every side eye they throw, every attempt to diminish your reputation only proves that your light is reaching places they thought were untouchable. You are not the problem they claim you are. You are the solution they're too afraid to accept. The streets know who you are now. The truth teller who doesn't fold under pressure. The protector who stands up for those who can't defend themselves. The chosen one who chose to use their power for justice rather than personal gain. Your name carries weight now because your character has been tested in fires that would have consumed lesser spirits. You don't need to clear your name in rooms where you never belonged in the first place. The truth follows you like a faithful shadow. It speaks even when you choose silence. You're not feared because you're reckless. You're feared because you're righteous. Because you can't be controlled, because you expose rot behind polished facades without raising your voice or making threats. You are the reflection corrupt people can't avoid and the voice they can't drown out. You make people reckon with themselves, and that's why they gossip and scheme and plot. It's not confusion driving their behavior, it's conviction. They hoped their words would diminish your influence. Instead, they built your legend. Every lie told, every warning whispered, only proved you were someone worth fearing, worth watching, worth trying desperately to silence. But what they never understood is this. You don't run from conflict when truth is at stake. You stand still in your power, and truth has always been louder than their noise. So let them talk until they exhaust themselves, trying to define something they'll never understand. You've already won, not by shouting or fighting, but by standing unshaken, undeniable, and unapologetically real. The streets know who you are now, chosen one. They know you don't fold. They know you don't break. They know you don't compromise your values for convenience or comfort. And most importantly, they know that your truth has made it impossible for things to go back to the way they were before you decided to stand up and speak out. Your voice changed everything, and everyone knows it. That's why they're all talking about you. That's why your name carries power now. That's why the crown fits your head so perfectly. It was always meant to be yours. The voice that was silenced must now speak with supernatural boldness that shakes foundations. The heart that was wounded must now overflow with healing for others walking similar paths of awakening. The spirit that was broken must now demonstrate the power of resurrection to those who have lost hope in transformation. Your testimony is your weapon against lies. Your story is your ministry to the broken. Your scars are your credentials for authentic leadership. Your survival is your sermon to those still fighting. Your victory is your vindication against every voice that said you wouldn't make it. The revolution is no longer coming. It has arrived, and you are both its catalyst and its undeniable leader. The awakening is no longer future. It is present reality, and your voice is its clarion call. The victory is no longer hoped for. It is assured. And your life is its living proof that change is not only possible but inevitable when someone refuses to stay silent.